Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Insuring India, a podcast by Digit Insurance. I'm your host Sabri Saran, and on this episode, we will discuss something that we should be talking about, in fact, know about, but the level of awareness around it is among the lowest. I'm talking about liability insurance. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you are hearing this term for the first time. Before I delve into liability insurance, let me talk about something you might have heard of, and that is the third party cover for motor insurance. It is a mandated cover, and vehicles can't ply on roads without a TP or a third party cover. For those of you who don't know what a TP cover is, it is basically a cover where the insurer offers protection against damage to the third party vehicle, personal property, and physical injury. So, for example, if you're driving and your vehicle injures or kills a person or damages their property, etc., a third party cover in this case would pay for any compensation that you might be liable to pay. But is this or should this only be limited to roads? What about incidents that happen in a workplace, business premises, etc.? What if there is an untoward incident towards your clients or customers or the public at large in your premises? This is where the Public Liability Insurance Act of 1991 comes into picture. This was actually enacted by the government after the infamous Bhopal gas tragedy. Your safety is actually the responsibility of the owner of the premises you are on. So, what exactly is liability insurance? And why should businesses be buying a liability cover? And who is it really for? There are a lot of questions in my mind, and to answer these today, I have with me Mudassir Khalil, Head of Liability Insurance at Go Digit General Insurance. Mudassir, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Sabri, for having me and to take up this topic to increase the awareness about liability insurance, especially for the businesses.
Thanks, Mudassir. I'll jump right into my first question. I'm actually not even sure if a lot of people even understand what a liability insurance is. So, for our listeners, can you explain what it really means?
Yes, Sabri. So, very true. Very few people understand liability insurance, and until unless somebody has gone through the trauma of being a victim of bodily injury or property damage, or have seen in their surrounding about any person or property getting damaged, would be only aware about the liability insurance or how the liability works. Like you rightly pointed out, the infamous Bhopal gas tragedy, which was
Correct.
happened in Bhopal, wherein a gas leaked and a lot of people got injured. Until today, people are being born with some kind of mutations and some kind of deformity in their body. So all of
Correct.
this is a liability insurance protects the insured from claim coming from the plaintiffs or victim who have incurred a bodily injury or property damage because of any actions or inactions of a establishment. So if we talk about Bhopal gas tragedy, in that there was a industrial unit, a chemical unit from which a chemical was leaked,
Right.
which caused a bodily injury or property damage to the neighboring property and people at large. Until date, people are getting affected from that chemical leak because it caused mutation in the human body. So the
Right.
compensation which is payable to such kind of injured person is covered under a liability insurance.
So, you mean almost everyone, in a sense, can be exposed to an external or third party liability. So, what kind of businesses should look at getting a liability insurance?
So, as a general insurance practitioner, I think any business which is a brick and mortar business or even an e-commerce business, because they would be shipping out deliveries, need a liability insurance because of their actions or inactions can lead to a bodily injury or a property damage to the third party. So a simple example can be, if you are a shop owner and some visitor comes into your shop and there
Correct.
is a naked wire or there is a electrical short circuit and somebody gets electrocuted, so they can actually hold the shop owner responsible for the bodily injury it caused to them. Or even there can be a scenario wherein you serve something to eat as a normal pleasantries that is very much prevalent in India, that if you go to any shop, you would be served some tea, snack or something, and
Correct.
it caused some food poisoning and medical injury to the guest. Then also they can file a suit against you, even in a wedding, it can be there that you serve food in a wedding and people can get injured or have food poisoning and file a suit against you. And in India, Atithi Devo Bhava is there, and there is no establishment which will not offer you any tea or snacks to
True,
any
yeah.
visitor coming into their premises. So, be it a small business owner or a large factory or industrial unit or a hotel or a shopping complex, even hospitals, like anybody which is having a premises, brick and mortar, or even virtual premises, like I said, delivery. So there can be delivery man who would be delivering, some goods and parcel to your doorstep. And while he's delivering, maybe during loading, unloading, or just during handing over the packet to you, if the packet falls and injure on your toe, you can make the
Right.
other person liable for the bodily injury that caused to you. Or if they put the package and it you have a beautiful flower vase outside your door and it gets damaged because of them, you can actually file a suit against the delivery person or delivery company or the shopping company from you purchased that goods for the damage that it has caused to you.
So, Mudassir, you explained a lot of scenarios a liability insurance actually covers. Can you give some real life examples or cases that might have taken place in India or even abroad where some incident happened and having a liability insurance actually helped?
So the major infamous one is the case of a big fast food chain when they served a hot coffee to a lady, and the lady got the coffee cup, went into the car, sat into the car, and when the car started moving, the coffee spilled over on her lap, and she got burned. And she filed a suit against the retail chain owner saying that you were not able to warn her enough that coffee would be too hot, or like it's very obvious that yes, if you're buying a hot coffee, the coffee would be hot.
Right,
But
yeah.
she claimed and she won in the court of law, stating that I knew that coffee was hot, but it was too hot to be served. That's
Got
why when it spilled over her lap, she got burned. So those kinds of cases have happened in the past. Even if we talk in India, also there has been incidences in hospitals. So there was a hospital which caught fire, and the patient got burned because of that. So in hospital also you have oxygen supply. Even the COVID duration, we saw a lot of cases coming in wherein when the medical oxygen was being pumped into the cylinders from the truck, there was a spark and the explosion happened, and not the bystanders, people got injured. The neighboring premises got shattering of their glass panes and window panes, and property damage caused because of a medical oxygen being transported from the bus or truck, which was the unit carrying the gas, to the cylinder unit of the hospital. So those kinds of incidents had happened. Very recently, we have seen in a very shopping complexes where you see now a lot of shops being in a one commercial complex, or a congested area wherein a lot of shops are very close by to each other, which share common boundaries as well. And there can be a fire, and the fire will spread and engulf a lot of shops at one single time. But in
right.
actually, the liability will come to that shop owner from where the fire emanated. So even if you have a small 10 by 10 shop and you have like 10 other 30 other shops surrounding you, and because of your actions or inactions. So when I say actions and inactions, let's dwell upon a little there also, that it's not only that if you do something which has caused the injury, even if you are required to do something and you are not doing it,
Right.
your inactions can also cause bodily injury. So it's not always that you have done an actual action which has caused an injury. So like in a fire scenario, you should have tried to douse the fire by having a fire extinguisher in place. But your inaction of not douse, taking the initiative to douse that fire has increased the fire and spread of the fire. So even that can you be held responsible for causing bodily injury and property damage to your surrounding neighbors.
Understood. But Mudassir, like, are these like one-off incidents, or do we actually see a lot of cases in India where liability insurance actually save businesses from huge liabilities?
Saran, the incidents, if you take a newspaper of any given day, you will see a fire incident being reported. But
Right.
unfortunately, like other insurances, the general insurance penetration in India is 1% only, and liability is again a fraction of the general insurance industry premium. So
Right.
that's why the penetration of liability insurance is pretty low, and it's just the awareness because of which people are not buying it. It's not that liability insurance for these shop owners or commercial complexes are pretty expensive. These are very competitively priced, but
Right.
it's just the lack of awareness which lead to not having these coverages in place. And people actually go bankrupt, or they have to take a lot of loans to repay to such damages which they have caused to others. Secondly, the litigation again is a little slow process in India. The judiciary is overburdened, so that's why there is a hesitant from other neighbors also to file a suit against you in common practice. Plus,
Right.
these commercial complexes, when you talk about a shop in shop or small areas which is largely for shopping area, so these are traditional business houses. When the forefathers have started the business, the second generation or third generation is working. So they also work in a very close community, and they try to help out each other. And the idea of claiming from one another is not there, because they have not seen or they are not aware about their rights as well. So they take
Right.
it like, okay, it's a their destiny, or it's a God decision because of which they had this loss. But things are evolving and changing with little awareness coming in, more education coming in, more financial literacy coming in, and the scale of businesses becoming large. So they will always seek, if they have an opportunity or they have a recourse which is facilitated by a legal recourse, in which they can get back that compensation, in form of compensation, the money that they have lost to rebuild their businesses, they will always try and do it. And that's what of late, from past 5 to 6 years, we are seeing that even in this close knit community there are incidences wherein people are starting to claim against their neighbor after after the fire incident has happened, or any other electrocution things that happen.
I think, Mudassir, you have rightly pointed out that this actually is also a huge awareness problem. And forget businesses, I'm not sure how many people even seem to be aware of their rights. So, can you explain what does the law specify and what are the things that a common man or people should be aware of?
So basically, as per the mandated by law for premises, there are only Public Liability Act which is in place, which was enacted after the infamous Bhopal gas tragedy. So
Right.
that is on the doctrine of strict liability, wherein it states that there is a interim relief to the party injured. So there is a very small compensation payable which a collector can award. And we take in mind that this is a very old act of 1991. So the compensation payable here of 6,000 rupees or 25,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees are pretty small amount, which does not actually pay for an actual loss. So it's just for interim relief. But for your own risk management, you need to buy these policies of adequate limits. So when we come about adequate limits or policy limit, or in general layman terms, which we call as sum insured, because people are aware about fire insurance and they know what their cost of reconstruction of their property is, or what their value of their stock is when they buy a
Right.
fire insurance or property insurance. So they know sum insured. So similarly, in liability, there is a risk transfer in terms of policy limit that you can purchase. So generally, people need to buy at least 10 to 25% of the revenue or asset that they own, so that the old saying goes that I will sue you for your last penny. So
Right.
whatever you own, people cannot demand more than that from you. But your net worth, and generally, if you'll see, these are proprietorship where the liability is unlimited. Even if it's a
Right.
company, then liability is limited to company assets and revenue. So that's why you need to buy an adequate limits, so that if tomorrow, God forbid, there is some incidents because of your actions and actions, there is a general liability for general public or third party property, bodily injury happening, property damage happening, then that limit should be adequate enough to first protect and provide you legal defense, because there can be a contributory negligence by the other party as well. So
Right.
for a simple scenario, if it is say a shop, and somebody comes in and you have put a proper warning, mind your step or mind your head if there is a ceiling where there is a something which can injure the head, or there is a step wherein if
Right.
you need to be very careful when you are stepping into that store or shop, and you have put adequate marking, and still somebody is negligent enough and do not take the proper care and gets injured, then there is always a contributory negligence of the victim as well. So that's
Right.
why when it goes to court of law, it's not only about the compensation but defense also. So the defense cost or the legal fees which is paid to the shop owner's lawyer to defend a claim against him or her or his entity is also payable under the liability insurance. And
Got it.
it will
Yeah.
always help to provide a good defense if you have taken proper care. So, like the example I was stating earlier, that mind your step, mind your head.
Right.
Other warning signs, there can be electrical hazard, or stay away from this area, or wet floor. So these are smaller warning signs which are generally laid in a commercial complex or a shop. Even if we talk about businesses and factories and industrial units, so there can be live wires, high voltage wires. So all those signatures and pictograms and warning signs are placed. So all these help in reducing the liability on the insured or the entity who is buying this insurance, so that when a third party comes to their premises, they are enoughly and adequately warned about the hazard. So that's why if you see in a shop, less warning signs would be there, because very less things which can cause an injury would be there. So people would be very aware about it. But when you go to industrial units, that's why they don't allow you to wander off in an industrial unit or a chemical unit without any proper guidance. So there would be somebody always accompanying you while you are in those premises. So the liability insurance not only protect and provide for the compensation, but also provide a protection in terms of defense cost, so that if somebody who got injured was not negligent on his part as well and contributed to the cause of injury or property damage, to that extent the liability over the business owner can be reduced in a court of law.
Mudassir, I now want to focus more on small businesses. I know that we spoke of examples of the Bhopal gas tragedy or even an incident in a chemical plant, etc. But can you explain how liability insurance comes to the rescue of small businesses? I want to focus on this more because a liability suit can actually impact small businesses the hardest. So, what kind of covers are available for them, and who should really be taking it? What are the costs involved? If you can explain that as well.
So small businesses would be generally proprietorship firms or small shops, which are there can be provision store. Those can be very specific niche stores of utensils or some kind of clothes, textiles. There can be some kind of dedicated stores. So when we see in traditional marketplace in Indian cities, there would be
Right.
an area which would be designated. Okay, this is a utensil area or utensil market, or this is a spice market, or this is shoe market, or this is a market wherein you are getting cloth, or there can be a designated area which was known as jewelry market. So in those kind of small businesses where the turnover might be ranging from 50 lakhs to 50 crore rupees, depending on what is kind of the value of goods they are selling in that premises. So first of all, they should be very aware about what are the hazards in their premises. So in terms of if they have steps or they have beams which can hit the head, or there
Right.
can be chairs which are pretty old, and if somebody sits on them, then relax, the seat can collapse. So all these standard hygiene things about maintaining their premises should be there. Plus, depending on the turnover or their asset size which they are having, they should buy a 10 to 25% of the asset size of their businesses as the policy limit. For example, your turnover is say 5 crores, or your assets are say 5 crores worth of that,
Right.
then you should buy at least 50 lakhs to 1.5 crores kind of policy limits. So if
Okay.
somebody comes into your shop and has an injury and file a suit against you, you are adequately protected. So if you see in normal typical injury scenario where there can be a fracture or there can be a head hurt and somebody is taken to an hospital, so the approximate cost would be close to 1 to 5 lakh rupees. rupees. So if you are a small unit, the person who is coming to your premises would be also having a certain kind of income range. So the higher the income range, the more liability amount can be awarded by court for the injury to the person. So if there are two kind of people coming to your premises having same injury, but one is having a higher income than the another one, the
Right.
liability amount paid as a compensation will differ because that is dependent upon the injured person income level, because that is the financial loss to him because of that bodily injury which is caused because of your negligence as a business. So
Oh,
that's why we peg that, what kind of clientele is coming to your shop. So if you are a jewelry shop, then definitely there would be a high income group of people coming into your shop. So then you will need to
right.
buy a little higher limit. So that is always taken care by the turnover, because if you are a jewelry shop, your turnover will be say 50 crore, 100 crore. So then you
Correct.
can
Yeah.
buy a limit like 5 crore, 10 crore as well. So if a person who is having a very handsome income comes to your premises and gets an injury and has to be away from work for 1 or 2 weeks because of a fracture or an injury, which took 2 3 weeks to get back to the normal work routine for the injured party. So the medical
Right.
expenses would be say 5 lakh rupees. The compensation or in terms of their mental anguish would be say 20 25 lakhs plus the work away. They have to take leave, so the employment loss, financial loss they would be having in terms of being away from work can be another 20 25 lakh. So easily a compensation can go up to a 1 cr limit or a 50 lakh limit easily. So in that terms, the business owner should think that what kind of clientele are visiting their premises, what kind of turnover they have, and then they can
Right.
decide what policy limits can buy. Herein, general insurance also play a very pivotal role, that they have certain kind of package policies in which, along with the property, the good in stock, they can buy a section in that package policy itself for public liability as well, wherein certain kinds of policy limits are given. So that
Right.
can have an option as well. An individual policy also can have a limit option that you can choose as per your budget as well, because although you might be requiring a 50 crore limit, but if you don't have a budget to pay for the premium, although these are very competitive, but still, as a first time buyer, you are very cautious when you are incurring and buying an insurance, because insurance in India is still uh, taken as a luxury and not as a necessity risk management expense. Hence, you can always seek options. Okay, if how much will 25 lakh rupees limit cost, how much a 50 lakh rupees limit will cost, and how much a 1 CR policy limit will cost. So for an
Right.
average business house which has got a 50 crore of turnover, these limits would be something adequately priced. So it can be say for 25 lakh rupees, the premium can be as low as 2,500 rupees. And if it is a larger unit with a higher clientele coming in or higher number of footfall coming in, it can go as high as up to 25,000 rupees for the same limit, because there are various factors which goes into calculation of the premium, not only the turnover but number of people coming in your premises, how old and new your premises are, what are the hazards of your premises. So if there is a shop which is selling cloth, the
Right.
chances of fire happening and the fire expanding to the neighboring properties would be much higher than a shop which is selling only iron utensils.
Right.
So hence the premium would differ in these two scenarios. But the range is going to be, for a 25 lakh rupees cover would be 2,500 to 25,000 rupees. There can be instances then it can be as low as 500 rupees as well. So depending upon the occupancy, what kind of coverage you are buying, the premium will change.
Right. Thank you so much, Mudassir, for explaining that, because even I didn't know that these liability covers are actually quite cheap, because the general impression in the market is that getting a liability cover for X crore or X many lakh would actually be quite expensive. So thank you so much for explaining that. And with this, we come to an end of our podcast. And thank you so much, Mudassir, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining us on the Insuring India podcast.
Thank you, Sabri. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Mudassir. We hope you all enjoyed this conversation. And here's hoping you understand liability insurance better than you previously did. And let's hope the awareness around liability insurance only increases as we go forward and more businesses, whether big or small, realize the importance of it. That's all on this episode, folks. Do subscribe to us to keep getting notified whenever we drop something new. Thank you and see you next time.